Okay, so let's get started without further ado. Okay, okay, so today the topic I got to talk about is nocturnal animals. So I kind of made some alterations just without just talking about nocturnal animals. We are going to talk about species that typically live their lives in the dark, who like compared to animals that you see diurnally. There are some not only nocturnal animals, like some species which are very evolved, living life in dark. Okay, okay. Okay, so first of all, like when we talk about a nocturnal species, the first thing what comes, like especially when we are talking about species which are living in the night, as well as that, the first thing probably which comes into your mind is bats. So bats are also nocturnal. So what is exactly a nocturnal animal? If you look the differences between a diurnal species and a nocturnal species, so nocturnal animals are animals who have preferred and who have evolved to come out during the night, dusk or dawn also sometimes. So they do the activities which is hunting, breeding, all those during the night compared to diurnal species. So there are some nocturnal species which you can see during the day also, like for example, lions and those wolves, coyotes. Like if you take those animals, for example, you can see them in the day, especially crocodiles also, you can see them basking in the sun during the day, but they're more like mainly and more active during the night. So there are some of like exactly like before when I said there are these animals have really adapted to life in the dark, not being nocturnal. So some of them do have physical traits and behavioral adaptations as well to make life easier at night. For example, if you take most mammals, they have extremely large eyes, which helps them see in the dark to find their prey easily, as well as predators. So also most of them have a great sense of smell. And if you take arachnids, they have really specialized hairs with sensory receptors. There are other animals with sensory receptors as well, but especially these arachnids. Arachnids are like spiders, scorpions, and also certain bugs like crickets. Also, they also have these specialized hairs, and also they use echolocation, which typically bats have. So, but why have these animals evolved into a lifestyle, a nocturnal lifestyle? They could like preferably stay and do their activities during like other main species. So, some of the reasons why they have chosen predators. So, let's say so typically from the Jurassic periods, like most of the smaller species, the smaller earlier mammals, most of them have evolved to be active during the night so they can get away from large predators. That is one theory. So just like that, smaller birds, smaller reptiles, most of them evolved for a nocturnal lifestyle because of these larger predators. But also, if you take, imagine if all the animals were active during the day, competing for food. Let's say, for example, let's take birds. You can take eagles and owls. So if all the eagles and owls in the world were out hunting during the day, competed, like most of them do feed on small rodents and other small animals, so they're predatory. So if all those birds start hunting during the same time, there will be a big competition. That is one particular reason, as well as there are some animals or like the recent years, like if you take a time period from the 1960s to the 21st century that we're living in now, especially animals in Europe and North America. So there are other examples as well, but the reasons I picked Europe and North America is most of the larger animals have adapted during the recent years. Like for example, if you take wild boars from like Spain and all those European countries. So those wild boars, they were typically those are animals who are active during the day as well. But now they have evolved mainly to be active at night. So you can see these animals actually roaming all around the cities and all at night. So they are there, but they are hiding during the day. So those are typically animals who were diurnal, but have slightly evolved to a nocturnal lifestyle because of certain reasons like development and all of that. So there are lion populations in Tanzania as well who have adapted into a nocturnal lifestyle. Most of them, typically lions do rest during the day and hunt during the night, but there's a population in Tanzania who's like completely nocturnal. They sleep all throughout the day, saving their energy for the night. So like that, there's a lot of animals like that. So if you guys remember, especially in social media, about the probably like the first 2-3 months of the COVID lockdowns, in especially Europe and North America, there was a lot of sightings of urban wildlife. Actually, even though they are living in an urban habitat, so they were typically in those habitats because of these urbanizations and development. They don't regularly come out during the day. Especially if you all remember, there was deers coming into the cities during the day because there was no humans or anything. Bears, coyotes, wolves, all sorts of animals. So those are a couple of reasons why animals are becoming nocturnal and why they have evolved into a nocturnal lifestyle. So how do these animals see in the dark? So typically, if you go out in the dark, let's say, for example, you were at home, like inside your house with perfect lighting for a couple of hours, and if you just go out to the pitch darkness, it will take at least 15-20 minutes for your eyes to adapt, or otherwise you have to close your more focused eye, and the eye will get adapted soon. So, but these nocturnal animals, most of the nocturnal animals have really good eyesight. They have really large eyes compared to diurnal species in some. And we know, like, if you shine a flashlight for one of your friend's eyes, or if you do it really diluted, it gets smaller. So that's when there's a lot of light coming into your eye, your pupil gets really small. And when there's low light, your pupil gets really expanded, allowing more light to come inside to the eye and like receive an image. So these most of the nocturnal animals, okay, like for example, you can see on the right of the screen, there's a cat with glowing eyes, not the snow leopard, but there's a cat. So that's the reason I have used the image of a cat is because most of you are probably familiar with a scenario like this. If you like take a flash picture of your cat or dog, or most of the animals like that, you can see there's a shine like this. So the reason why this happened is, so most nocturnal animals, especially cats, cat family members, so they have this small cell receptor in the back of the eye behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum. So this is like, it's a receptor made from a lot of cell structures. These cells act like mirrors. So when light hits this, it will reflect the light straight back out. So you like probably if you all go in the highway and these major roads, you'll probably have seen these small shining things on the curbside, like when the headlights are on it at night. So those are called cat eye reflectors. So that's also made using the concept these animals eye shine has. So that's to especially when there's bends, deep curving bends in the road and all, you can clearly see the bends with those. So okay, so apart from sight, these animals have a great sense of smell and taste. So if you take small nocturnal mammals like sieverts, mongooses, cats, small wild dogs, otters, all of these animals, even the larger mammals like tigers and leopards and lions. So those animals also, they do a lot of scent marking, especially mongooses and otters, for example. They have a thing like when they scent mark, they do defecate as well. What they do is they defecate in a really high place compared to the surrounding. If you can see, there's a mongoose on the right image, it's defecating on a rock. So when it's typically on a higher ground, so the other individuals in the habitat can see like, okay, this is this guy's habitat, this is like the sort of like a hierarchy. Okay, so animals like snakes and all, they have seeking pits, which pythons and pit vipers have. So that gives them an infrared image of the surrounding, as well as when they're finding prey and to stay apart. So they have this special, and also they have this special organ called Jacobson's organ. So this is in the roof of their mouth. So what this organ does is, so one of the typical behaviors of a snake is they flick their tongues on the air. So like, but what that does is the the tongue is divided into two as well in snakes. So the reason for that is when they're flicking their tongue, they can capture more particles in air, like taste particles in the air. They get a image or a message of what's there, the brain. So this is how these snakes, if you can remember in the previous exercise, so they get around and get a feel around in their environment. Okay, so, and before I told you these like see the image on the left top right, that's a stinger of a scorpion, for a scorpion. So you can, they have it entirely covered in their body. So what these hairs does is, okay, so as I was saying before, these spiders and tarantulas and scorpions have these specialized hairs, okay, called trichobothria. Okay, people do pronounce it differently. So these hairs, they can actually detect the vibrations transmitted in air. So like imagine if there was a scorpion about 3 feet away, and like in front of you, and like if you get down low and just wave your hand 3 feet away or more, these animals can detect it. They can also sense vibration in the surface, but even the air vibrations, they can detect them really quickly. So they have really sensitive nerve endings in these hairs. So they can, these cave dwelling crickets and all, they also have a similar mechanism like this. So if you have seen like probably you don't typically see these tarantulas and all, but at your homes, I'm probably sure there's another spider like a tarantula with really slim, long legs. It's called a huntsman. Sorry, I don't have image of it right now. So those spiders, even you can see clearly, they have this very visible hairs, as well as the small spiders. So these jumping spiders, the small ones, if you like, if you just take a few moments of your life and like if you see one of those jumping spiders on a table or something during the day, you can, if you just look at it for 15 to 20 minutes, it will definitely like jump up in there and catch like fast moving flies and all. If you just take a moment to look at that behavior, it's really fascinating how this small animal catches like flies flying in the midair. So they just jump up and they grab them, and these hairs do help them in hunting as well, because like the flies and all these other small bugs, their wing flappings do create air vibrations. Through that they can detect them, and they will jump up and catch these prey. Okay. Okay. So also one of the other main things what these nocturnal animals use is echolocation. So if any of y'all, the first thing what comes into mind when someone says the word echolocation is bats. So if, in case you guys are not sure how echolocation happens, I'll explain it. So echolocation in bats, like how they do is, and one more thing I want to get blind. They are not blind. They have perfectly good vision, but this vision do not help them in the dark, especially when they are in caves, roosting, and at night when they're out hunting. What happens is they create small clicks, high frequency clicks, using these very strong special muscles surrounding their throat. So what they do is they send out this sound. The human, the frequency we hear in is like here 30,000 to 80,000 hertz. So that's the frequency which human ears can't even hear. So they do send. Okay, so these bats, how this echolocation works is they send out these sound waves, and when the sound waves hit their prey or a predator or a blind wall, this sound returns back, and detecting that, they will know whether there's an animal, like they can even know if the animal, the prey is moving forward, left, or sideways. So they have a really good sense of sound through this. So this is how bats get around during the night, as well as like toothed whales. Okay, if you take animals like dolphins, whale sharks, and all those small whales, they also use this echolocation like sonar almost, but they don't project the sound through their throats. They project their sound through their nasal systems, so they can easily find small schools of fish, squid, and all those animals. They feed like that. Okay, so when you typically think about animals active at the night, the first thing that comes into mind, like I said before, are bats. But as you'll see before, more than bats, there are so many other species who are adapted to living life in the dark or night. Okay, so this is something that typically I don't think anyone has ever like spoke about this specific part in any lecture. As far as I know, this is we are going to talk about the cave dwelling species. So these cave dwellers, they are known as Troglofauna. So like if you take reptiles, they are called herpetofauna. So the animals, the species that live in caves, cave dwelling species, they are known as Troglofauna. Okay, so based on their ecology, like how they live in these caves and how they use these caves, these animals are divided into three main categories, three main groups. Okay, so the first one is so the main, we'll start from the third one on the image, because that's like the main animals. So those are called troglobites or troglobionts. Okay, so those are animals who have been confined to cave life. So they have formed a lot of adaptations and all to live in caves. And these animals typically they survive only in caves. So there are some species who cannot actually like survive out in daylight. And after that, there are another group called Troglophiles. So the word philes in Greek, it means love. So these are animals who are attracted and actually live in these most moist and dark cave environments, but they can live in the subsurface as well. And I also forgot to mention that troglo means caves in Greek, and the word bites, bios, bites, that translate into life. So these are troglobites, animals who live their entire life inside caves. And Trogloxenes. Okay, troglo again in Greek cave, and xenos means guest. So these are species who live, who actually do live in the subsurface, as well as use caves and underground habitats, such as roosting places, places to hibernate. So typically bats are also trogloxenes, and also humans were trogloxenes a while back, as you all know. So bats, all those animals, those are trogloxenes. Okay, so we'll skip to the next slide and see what these animals are. Okay, so trogloxenes, they are typically animals who roost in caves, use caves for breeding, in search of shelter, and also sometimes in finding a meal. So typically, a typical trogloxene, a cave-dwelling species is a bat. So bats, there are a lot of species of bats. There are fruit bats, also insectivorous bats who live in caves. So apart from bats and like the major animals who live in caves like bears and all that, there are a few unusual animals who use these caves as well. So you can see in this middle image, there's a crocodile. So there was a recent means just like a discovery done in the last decade. A group of researchers found this cave-dwelling crocodile species. So the species, this is a species of the dwarf crocodile from Africa. There's a small country called Gabon. So this is where these crocodiles were found. So these crocodiles were found deep inside these caves. They were actually breeding inside caves as well. So there were signs of hatchlings inside these caves. So for a reptile who typically needs sunlight and energy from the sun to recharge their bodies and do their daily activities, this is a very unusual thing for a crocodile to live in a cave habitat. So these animals, they do have a some of these cave dwelling these crocodiles. This is the same species which you find outside. There's, as far as I remember, 3 dwarf crocodile species in Australia. So sorry, in Africa. So one of these species has adapted to this cave living. And if you see the pictures right below, you can see one crocodile has almost like a rust, orangish brown color. So these crocodiles have the like even their color has changed living in this cave system. So scientists are they kind of have a theory that this is a sort of a bioluminescence that, which has sort of adapted. So there's a small documentary about this called Cave Crocodiles of Gabon. I highly recommend that if you have free time, you can watch it. It's, I think, less than an hour. It's really interesting. And also there are snakes of sorts which go in caves, but snakes obviously, so like these crocodiles, they're also reptiles, but these snakes, they do come out of the caves to like get themselves energized from the sun and all. But these crocodiles, they have been found living inside the cave for a certain period of time. So snakes, they can just come and go. So the typical snakes who use caves are, there are boa species from like South America and all. So the snake here, this is a adapted subspecies of the beauty rat snakes. These are from Southeast Asia. You can find them in Thailand, Malaysia. So they do go into caves with bat colonies to feed on the bats, as well as pythons like Burmese pythons and retics, reticulated pythons are also found in cave systems like this. So these trogloxenes, if you guys are not clear, these are animals again who are using caves for roosting, for breeding, in search of a meal. So they do live in the subterranean habitats as well, but they do go into caves for these things. Okay, so troglophiles. Troglophiles are animals who are able to live their entire lives in caves as well as above ground. So they can either stay inside caves, adapt to cave life, or they can stay outside of cave in subterranean habitats as well. So the first image here, there's a tailless whip spider. I'm pretty sure you guys are probably familiar with these guys. It's featured in the one of the Harry Potter movies as well. I can't remember which one. So these tailless whip scorpions, they are also an arachnid. They don't have a tail with a stinger like your typical average scorpions. but they have legs, long legs, and so they're usually you can find them like you do find them in like your gardens as well. So like around Colombo, it's a bit rare to see them, but you do find them like even in Ukiyogoda, I have personally found them. So they also have these small pincers like scorpions, and they feed on small bugs and all that. So the tailless deep scorpions that you find above ground, these animals are typically very solitary. So like if they encounter another individual of their kind above ground, they typically, if they're not in their breeding season, they typically kill each other and they will eat, like one will feed on the other. But the cave dwelling species, the cave, it's the same, like different, there could be different species, but the same type, yeah. So these cave dwelling ones, they have evolved into living together. So they are fine, they are compatible with another of their kind. So they don't go and kill each other, and they're very typically kind of mellow compared to the ones outside. So that's also a sign of even their behaviors have changed for them to live in the caves. The reason for that is inside caves, food is a bit scarce compared to outside. So maybe one reason is without sparring with another individual of their species, they actually maybe they have evolved into like reserving their energy for hunting rather than just fighting with another individual. And also there are crustaceans as well, which are typically crayfish. There are shrimp species. There are crabs as well. So some of these crustaceans, you do find them in water streams outside of caves, as well as there's some who have adapted to live inside caves. And on the top right picture, there's a cave salamander. So these are from North America. You can find them in a couple of states. So those also you can find in typical wetlands as well, but you can find them in caves as well. So they are adapted into the pitch dark. And also then again to the left below, there's a picture of a daddy long legs. It's a kind of a spider. You probably have seen them in your gardens as well. So these spiders are also adapted to living in caves as well as outside. Also, spiders like the huntsman, they also can live like that. And also, there's another salamander, cave dwelling salamander here. I think this is the Tennessee cave dwelling salamander. This is like found in the state of Tennessee. We're talking about cave dwelling fish a little bit more. So this fish, this is actually the Mexican tetra. Now, when I say Mexican tetra, if there's a group of guys like who have kept fish, or who goes into your mind probably will be the blind cave tetras from Mexico. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So this again, Troglophiles, these are animals who can live outside of caves as well as inside caves. So they're, yes. Yes.
Under that crayfish, isn't it an axolotl or is it a salamander?
It's a salamander. Axolotls, they are not cave-dwelling ones. Like they're typically found in normal streams, like above caves. Okay. So
excuse me, Aya.
Yes.
Tailless scorpions found in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, you can find them in Sri Lanka. There's different species.
What sort of place can you find them?
Usually you can find them under big piles of rocks, and like if you have sheets piled up like along a roof, along a wall and all, you can typically find them in habitats like that.
Hey, so they are like, are they rare or common?
No, they are pretty common. Around Colombo, they are a bit hard to find, although they are really common. Okay, so if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer all your questions at the end. So we'll go along slideshow right now. So again, like this, these are animals who you can find above ground as well as in caves. So the next slide is going to be really interesting. Just keep this Mexican tetra in mind. Okay, so troglobites are animals who have evolved into like restricted, strict, for strict habitat inside caves. So they have poorly developed eyes, or some they do not have eyes at all, with little or no pigmentation. The reason we need pigment in our skin is to like kind of shelter our skin from sunlight and all. But these animals, they do not encounter sunlight, so therefore they don't need any pigment in their skin. And they also have very low metabolism as well, so they can kind of go for a long time without food and all. So the first image here, that is this blind cave tetra. So the ones of y'all who are probably interested and who are keeping fish has probably seen this fish and knows this fish. So this fish, when you look at it in a species perspective, this is the same species we saw before, the Mexican tetra. It's this species here. This is the same species, but the thing is, like, comparing this fish and the cave dwelling one. Sorry. Give me a second here. Sorry about that. Okay, so when you compare, first thing you see that it has an absent eye, as well as the color is different. So this is the same species, the same exact species, the Mexican tetra, but the cave population has adapted over thousands of years. They have lost their eye as well as the pigment in their skin. There's no skin color. As for the fish in the previous silver, this fish doesn't have any pigment color as well. So when they are born, some individuals may have a slight eye, but as they get older, there will be a sheet of skin formed over the eye, and the eye will disappear. So this is the same species, but these the eyeless, the blind cave tetra has evolved into a lifestyle strictly underground. Okay, so that is one cave dwelling troglobite fish. There's many more. We'll get to them as well slightly. And the fish, and the animal, the really weird looking animal in the middle of the screen, that's called an olm. Olms are an amphibian from Europe. So these are also amphibians who live really deep in caves. So they can be found in really deep water systems in caves as well. So this is a very unusual looking animal. Again, they also have no eyes out of their body. So there is a small eye, but like they can't see through it, as well as it's not visible for us from the outside. Like if you cut open their head, you can see eye, except that like you can't visibly see it to the surface. Okay, so these olms are also really well adapted to living their entire lives in caves. So their skin is so sensitive, like filmmakers and photographers who have photographed them has said when they use flash photography, they do like twitch, and also it could be the light produced by the camera flash has an effect on their skin as well. So their skin is that sensitive because they are not, the skin isn't really made, adapted to a light source hitting it. So these are completely aquatic, olms are. So they feed on small worms and all these bugs, small crustaceans which you find under crevices. And this is also known as the longest living amphibian. They can live anywhere from 50 to 60 years. And they breed, like they reproduce only once every 12 years. So that's a long period of time. So typically, if you take any other amphibian, they usually, most of them breed every year, reproduce every year. But these olms, they only breed every 12 years. So this is a species who is slowly declining due to certain reasons, because when you take water systems, these are main water systems, because all the rainwater and all from somewhere, from some whatever sinkhole connects to these underground systems. So from this water can, so and the animal next to it, this is called the naked mole rat. Okay, so this is a rat, rat as in sort of a rodent. Okay, so if you guys have watched the cartoon Kim Possible, there's a small naked mole rat in that. I can't remember the character name, but Ralph or something. So naked mole rats are highly socialized animals. So they are also they have eyes, but they're typically blind. So they have these, you can see on the picture here, they have these small hairs. These are really sensitive. So they can detect movement like vibrations through these hairs. They live in colonies up to even could be up to 100 individuals. There's a male, a leading female leading the colony. So they have built underground tunnels and all that. That's how they go there. Like, and you can see one interesting thing about them is you can see their incisors are actually outside their mouth. Like if you take a rat, for example, you can see the incisors are inside their mouth, but these are outside. So this helps them actually eat when they're eating without soil entering their body. They can easily eat fruits and all. So this is why they have the incisors outside of their body. Okay, so these are another cave-dwelling fish species. This is called the angel cave fish. This fish is found in Thailand, only found in two cave waterfalls in Thailand. These are very closely related to the hill stream loaches. Hill stream loaches are the species of loach who kind of looks like a baby stingray, but is a loach. They are really genetically close to that. So these fish, like if you see the skeleton here, like if you typically look at a loach or for example, a stone sucker, these fish have adaptations like even gobies, some gobies, they have like almost like a suction cup made out of their lower pelvic fins, or maybe stone suckers, they have this almost like a suction to their mouth. Even most loaches do have that. But these fish, they have a very unique adaptation. They don't have any suction cup or like adapted pelvic fins. What they do have is they have tiny microscopic hooks in like the rays of their fins in their so like there's really tiny microscopic hooks which they hook onto. So these fish, like I said before, they live in underground waterfalls. So which probably typically has really rapid flowing water, streaming water compared to small water, compared to the water sources where cave tetras are found in. So these fish, they feed on algae grown on rocks. So they can, so these fish, they can ichthyologists are saying that this fish would be a very unique fish to study. Like if you take, for example, the first animals who came out to land also evolved from animals like coelacanths and lungfish and whatever. So this could be a source to like how their limbs and all evolved, because they can almost just like walking on the land, they can climb on water streams and waterfalls and all. So this is really unique fish. Again, they have no eye, and there are actually a lot of these cave species, but I just took the time to talk about these three because these are a bit unique. So the Ozark cavefish, that's a species from North America, which is also near threat due to these guys are found in limestone sinkholes in the US. So if those sinkholes again are flooded with polluted water and all, these fish have a really hard time surviving. Also the southern cavefish, that's also another cavefish from North America, US. So if you typically look at these fish, they have a very similar look to our, from the fish you find in Sri Lanka to gobies or dusky sleepers and all that. Body shape wise, they typically look like that. But these are fish who have diverged from fish from their nearest relatives over hundreds of thousands of years, compared to like the cave tetra, which evolved recently from the relic species. Okay, so we'll step aside from the Troglofauna now, and we'll talk about the nocturnal mammals. So I haven't like added a lot of typical nocturnal mammals to the slideshow, like let's say lions and all that. So I have like just kind of added like the weird and unique ones. So when you talk about nocturnal animals, animals such as large as elephants are also nocturnal, and also hippos. Hippos are nocturnal, and also I forgot to mention one of the reasons why these animals have evolved into, like when we're talking about why they are nocturnal is hippos mainly. They are nocturnal because they like to avoid the heat of the day. So during the day, they're usually in water, but when it's dusk, when the sun goes down, they do come out of water to feed and like do their normal activities. So mainly when we're talking about the unique nocturnal mammals in Sri Lanka, we have lorises who have very large eyes. People do say lorises are very rare, but in my case, I think personally they're not very rare. They're just elusive. You don't see them very often. But if you keep a good eye and if you know their calls, you know they're there. They're not like a very rare species which is gonna like go extinct really quick. Yeah. So there's a couple of species of lorises. There's the gray sendaloris and the red sendaloris, and there are subspecies of those as well. And the next top image, that's the flying squirrel. There's two species of flying squirrels in Sri Lanka. They're also nocturnal. Flying squirrels typically, the reason they get the name flying is they can't fly like a bird. They can't like flap their wings and go up like a bird. What they do is they glide from a higher surface to a lower ground. So they're typically feeding on fruits and all that. And the loris typically they feed on insects and all. And the picture on the left below, it's a juvenile Asian palm civet, or the Indian palm civet. So civets are also typically nocturnal, which you probably, maybe I'm hoping most of you all have encountered them because you can clearly see them easily around Colombo. Okay, and the image next to it, that's a species of a shrew. Shrews are these small rodents who are kind of like subfossorial. You do find them in the night. In Sinhalese, they are known as Cycnias. I'm not exactly sure which species of shrew this is. So they are typically insectivorous. And the picture on the right corner, it's a tarsier. Tarsiers are these small primates from southeastern islands, like you find them in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Borneo, if I'm not wrong. So they are also small insectivorous. They do feed on small fruits and berries as well. And they have the title of having the largest eyes compared to the size of the head. If humans compared to their skull, they have the largest eyes of all mammals. So if humans had something similar to that, our eyes would be like the size of a coconut almost. Okay, and the animal down below, this is the eye. Eye is a nocturnal lemur from Madagascar. So they are insectivorous as well. They have this really long middle nail, actually middle finger, which they used to like put into small burrows and like termite mounds and all, and get the bugs and their larvae out. And they do feed on certain fruits and nuts as well. Okay. Talking about nocturnal birds. When we say nocturnal birds, the first thing that comes into your mind are owls. So there's a few species of owls here. So the owl shown here, this is the Serendip Scopes owl. This is an endemic species to Sri Lanka. You don't find them anywhere else. And the birds next to that, and owls typically they feed on small mammals, insects, and also reptiles and all, and also other birds. And the bird in the middle large picture who has a really weird looking mouth, this is the frog mouth. The reason it's called a frog mouth is because of the really large and wide beak they have. So frogmouths, you typically find them in rainforest as well as very lush forest. Okay. So the picture below, the nightjars are these birds who are also completely nocturnal. You have probably maybe seen them in like if you go to somewhere like Yala or a national park like that, and you're coming after dark. Typically on the roads, you can see there's these small birds, and as soon as the vehicle gets close, they fly away. So those are the nightjars. You have a really good chance of seeing them in the drier habitats as well as the intermediate zones. They have been found around Colombo long time ago as well, but nowadays I haven't heard of anyone seeing them. Like about 3-4 years ago, there was a person who I know saw it near Kalutara, but after that, there's no records. And then there is a very unique bird in the right corner. This is called the kakapo. This is a bird native to New Zealand, and it's also called the owl parrot. So this is actually an parrot. So if when you clearly look at it, the first thing you notice is the eyes are facing forward. Typically, when you look at a lovebird to a macaw, you get one of their unique characteristics are like they have their eyes on the sides of their head. But in this bird, you can see the eyes are clearly facing forward, just like in an owl. So that is for them to help help their nocturnal lifestyle. So these birds are actually flightless. Even though this is a parrot, they can't fly. And they are also known as the heaviest parrot in the world. They can grow up to almost more than 4 kilograms. They're very heavy. So, and they have very short wings. That's the reason they can't fly. They are really, they're almost like critically endangered. There's only less than 200 individuals in the wild, and they do take a long time to breed. And they do have a very long lifespan as well. They can live up to 60 to 80 years in the wild, so even more in captivity. And the picture below, it's the kiwi, one of the most unique birds. The kiwi also had, and also I forgot to mention the kakapo, the owl parrot, they also don't make a nest. They lay their eggs on the ground. So that's also one of the reasons why their populations were declining, is because like the earlier settlers, they bought animals like dogs and all those predators to New Zealand. And you actually can't find them in the mainlands of New Zealand. You can find them only in a couple of islands surrounding New Zealand. So the kiwi is also a nocturnal bird. It's almost a little bit small. A fully grown kiwi is a little bit smaller than your average chicken. One of the unique characteristics are, again, in kiwis, usually when you take a bird, their nostrils are in the base of their beak, but kiwis, they have it all the way in the tip of their beak. So they have this very long beak and the nostrils are on the tip. So this is the only bird in the world who has this characteristic. They're also flightless. During the day, they actually hide in burrows, and typically when the sun's down, they come out foraging for insects. So kiwis are also known to laying a really large egg, even though this adult kiwi female is size a little bit smaller than your average chicken. They can lay an egg almost the size of an ostrich's egg. So typically in a clutch, they only lay one egg because obviously it's a massive egg, almost the size of their body, and they are genetically closely related to ostriches. Okay, so that's a bit about the nocturnal birds. And we'll go to nocturnal reptiles. Okay, so when we talk about reptiles, there are a lot of nocturnal reptiles. Like, for example, most of the geckos are nocturnal, most of the geckos. And also when you take snakes, there are some families of snakes which are strictly nocturnal. Okay, starting from the first image, it's a testudine. So this is the black spotted turtle. In Sinhalese, you know it as the galliba. They have these nice blotches on their face. Yeah. Did anyone have a question?
Yeah, it's called Indian black turtle, right?
Yeah, Indian black, Parker's black, spotted black turtle, same species. So there is actually a subspecies as well, but typically the common name is Indian black turtle or the spotted black turtle. Okay, so this turtle, like juveniles have these really vibrant colors. As they get older, they lose their colors. They are also typically active mostly during night. At the daytime, also you can see them basking and all, but mainly they are found foraging at night in waters, and you can clearly see at night. Like if you go out in the morning, you can clearly see the ones who have been crossing roads have been like crushed and killed by roadkills and all this. Even the soft-shell turtle, which we have here, the Sri Lankan soft-shell, that's also typically nocturnal. When the eggs, actually, most of the time they hatch during the night, when there's like no birds and all who could pick these little ones up. So when we take geckos, almost all the geckos except one family. Yeah. Yes.
Is it legal to sell soft-shell turtles in Sri Lanka?
Well, it's like this. You can't sell the species which is found in our native habitat, which is the Sri Lankan soft shell, Lemis puntatus, as I remember the scientific name. So, but there's a species which is bought from abroad, the Chinese soft shell. There's albino ones and the normal typical most of those. Yeah, those ones you can sell because there is no legal restriction for them. Because of that, you are allowed to sell or keep them.
Yeah. So, but like at the tattoo shop, they took away their Chinese.
Yes, so it's like this. So imagine you have something legal, and is that okay if I explain that after the this lecture, because that's a bit long thing to explain. Okay. I'll explain that. Yeah. Okay, so apart from one family of the day geckos, okay, called the Nemespis in Sri Lanka, all the other geckos are strictly nocturnal. So day geckos, they're usually out at night, out during the day. So except them, all the geckos are typically nocturnal. So then again, if you look at vipers and all the vipers are strictly nocturnal. They have vertical pupils, and also animals like snake families like cat snakes, the boigas. So they are also strictly nocturnal. They are adapted to living being more active during the day, during the night. During the day, what they do typically is they are usually in tree burrows or tree hollows, just like they are not exactly sleeping, but they're resting. So even so, snakes like wolf snakes and kukri snakes, the more common species which you find around your house, the nocturnal snakes are these. But when you take a typical rat snake or bronzebacks, they are strictly diurnal. You find them during the day. And when you take a look at crocs also, crocs are, you can see crocs during the day out basking and all, but mainly they do their breeding and most of their hunting at night. Okay. So there are nocturnal fish as well. Typically, when you talk about marine fish, seawater fish, there's fish like squirrel fish, which is the fish shown here. And there are soldier fish, scorpion fish, lionfish, and certain species of groupers and eels, which are also nocturnal. And true eels, the long-finned eels, they are typically nocturnal. Most of the catfish species are nocturnal. Animals like fish like lungfish, polypterus, those are also nocturnal. Snakeheads, they are nocturnal. And knifefish, they are also nocturnal. And knifefish, yeah.
Are Channa orientalis nocturnal?
Yes, all snakeheads are nocturnal. They are active. You can see them during day, but they do their hunting and most active during night. Yeah. And this cat, yeah.
Are you like, there's like a thing that if you keep one of those fish, like, it just changes the behavior, right? Like,
sorry, I didn't get you.
No, are you like, if you keep one of those nocturnal fish, like in a, like in captivity,
yeah.
Then their behavior changes, right? Like,
yeah, that actually applies to all the animals, whether it's a fish or a bird or a reptile or insect.
No, I mean, like,
animal in captivity clearly changes their behaviors.
No, like I have like a lungfish at home, like in a tank, and like when I bought him, he kept on burrowing in the sand, like during the daytime, and then his behavior just changed to like not burrowing in the sand because he realized that his food comes
in like this. So yeah, I'll give you the explanation of that also after the lecture, because that's another long story. So again, these catfishes, they have their whiskers, and fish like Eels, they have their tentacles to smell very well. Also, snakeheads also have them, and fish like knife fish, they have electroreceptors which help them find their prey and all that in the night.
Oh, yeah, that's a ghost knife fish, right?
Yeah, ghost knife fish. So when I said knife fish, that includes ghost knife fish, the featherbacks, and also the electric eels. Electric eels are also knife fish. They are not true eels. Yeah. So all those knife fish, they have those electroreceptors to find prey.
What
So with all of that, give me a minute, buddy.
yeah.
With that, I'm ending my lecture.